Thank you so much for tuning in to the Healing Over Everything podcast. I am your host, T, and we actually have made it to the final episode of the season, and I'm super excited. Then I'm also a little melancholy about it. I do need to take a little bit of time off. I have a lot of things going on in my life right now and going through a lot of major transitions. And because of those transitions that I'm going through, they have become a big part of the process of healing for me, right? So as we know, this particular show is dedicated. Lost my train of thought there. It's dedicated to healing and healing as a whole and everything that means, including the physical, the mental, the emotional parts of healing. And, it has, this time in my life is a true testament of what that is, what it looks like and what it feels like, right? All of the things that you have to go through, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, the ebbs, the flows that you have to get to and get through to get to the next phase of your healing process that we all know is a long-term process, right? Healing isn't just, you do what you need to do and then voila, the magic happens and it's over. Healing is indeed a process. It is indeed a commitment that you have to make to yourself. You have to be dedicated to the discovery process, right? All of the things that you learn about yourself over time. And in that learning and unlearning, because that's why I am also like, I'm amazed at how much as people we've been conditioned in our lives, right? All of the information, the knowledge, the knowing that we have is things that have been told to us by other people. I would say 90% of the information that we have, or 90% of, our learned behavior is because of something someone else told us, something we've seen with our eyes, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of it is false information, right? Even if we go back to our times in elementary school and in middle school and high school, during our learning time, right? That's what that was. We were in our learning phase. A lot of the information that was thrust upon us was wrong information, right? Everything that we know has been told to us by someone else. Not a lot of our experiences are organic, are organic experiences that we discovered this and then made, we had this epiphany. And that's how we learned. A lot of the information was given to us. And, I'm very much in that unlearning phase, in that transitional phase in healing. And it's tough. It's foreign territory, as we know, but I'm willing to go through it to get to the other side of it, to see who I am at that other side, right? That discovery process, right? After you've gone through the rain and the storms and all of the things that appear to be bad, right? After you go through all of that and you emerge as your new authentic self, right? Then who is that new person? And that's where I am now, those transitions, right? So it'll be a minute before I come back. Like I said, after this particular episode, we will take a bit of a hiatus, and it's not even a hiatus. I just have a lot of things that I have to get done in a short amount of time, and I don't want to appear chaotic coming on and talking to you guys. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of time. We're going to restructure because we're going to come back with the next phase of the healing process, right? We're going to phase it out as if that's how we're walking through it. So I want it to be well thought out. I don't want to give junk. So that's why we're going to go through that little transitional phase of taking a step back and restructuring things. But so with this episode and what I'm currently going through, like I said, the transitions of life, as well as the unlearning of all the false narratives and the false information that was fed to me in my childhood and in my growing up. I just want to talk a little bit about that, because I'm sure, you guys are listening in, and if you're not there yet, you'll come to this fork in the road where you'll have, these transitions you have to maneuver through and navigate through. And hopefully, this particular episode can be a resource for you while you're going through those things. But one of the things that I'm really in the thick of right now, a couple of the things I'm in the thick of is, the transition of becoming who I need to become, right? So I mentioned to you guys previously, I was married, and I got married really, really young. I got married when I was 18 years old. And that's a story in itself, right? Growing up in the church, I was led to believe that I had to get married. You got to, you either marry or burn, whatever the little saying is. And, I was in a relationship with my children's father at the time. And, everybody was telling me, oh, you need to get married. You need to get married. You need to get married. And looking back, that was such wrong information, right? That was the wrong thing to tell me. First of all, when I started going to church, I was 15 or 16 years old. I was either pregnant with my daughter or had just had my daughter. I'm not really sure. It was so long ago. But I was a child. I was still in high school, and I have all these adult figures and, these prophets and evangelists and teachers and all of these people who are in positions of authority in my eyes telling me that I need to do this. And if I don't do this, that God is not going to be pleased with my lifestyle, right? And as a 16-year-old girl that was newly introduced to Christianity, I wanted to please God. So I was like, okay, so I have to get married. Okay, no big deal. So that was, my pursuit. That was the thing that I was going to do because I wanted God to be pleased with me. So at 18 years old, I got married at the time to my love, to the love of my life, right? No qualms about it. No harm, no foul. Like we did what we were supposed to do. We're now right in the eyes of God, but now, because I got married so young, and that's all that I knew from 16 to my late, 40s, 40s, this is all that I knew. I knew married life. I knew being, this support system and this matriarch of the family. That's all I knew. And, I'm at the point in my life right now. I've transitioned from being a wife to being this single woman to now being in another relationship that is amazing, right? So, but the transition of that, it's really been mind altering, right? It's been life altering, actually, and understanding that in my past relationship that I lived in codependency, right? And, some of it was a trauma bond, right? Because, I had experienced all this time alone, as a child because of the separation or divorce of my parents, that common law divorce thing that happens in our community. But yeah, so I was in this thing for so long, and now I'm trying to discover, and I feel like I'm doing a decent job of it. I don't think that I'm, a hero in the situation, but Discovering who I am now, not being someone's wife, right? Because for a long period of my life, that's how I identified, right? If you were to ask me, who are you? I would say, oh, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, those were, my first things because I took pride in it. I took pride in being a wife. I took pride in, being the helpmeet or the support of my significant other, right? And then I wasn't in that position anymore. So that was the huge transition for me. And right now, even though it's been 7 years or so, it's still the transition of it. I didn't realize how much it affected my day to day and who I am or who I was, right? Who I identified as, right? So a piece of me also felt a bit of, oh, now, who am I now? Right? I'm not anybody's wife. And the crazy thing about it, I never wanted to be anybody's wife, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so I'm going through those transitions. And if you have come to a fork in the road in your life where you were something for a very long time, it doesn't have to be in a relationship, but if you maybe transition jobs, right? If you were in, like at one point in my life for a very long time, I was in finance. I worked at banks for the first maybe 10 years of my life when I was working. And I loved finance, but then there was the whole crash of the market in the mortgage companies back in 2008. And that kind of shook my foundation a little bit with finance. And I had to make a decision. Do I stay in this situation and potentially not make or earn the income that I'm used to making, or not have the opportunities because of the major maneuvering or transitioning of that industry? Or do I step out on faith and do something different in the fear of it all and, move on to something else? And that was a transition as well. So it doesn't have to be a transition in relationship. It can be a transition in career. It can be a transition in, your physical, right? Maybe you were overweight before and you're now, I want to make a change in my life and I want to start eating healthy and doing the right thing so that I can, live this healthier lifestyle. We're all going to go through some sort of transition in life. But the point that I'm getting to is to always find yourself wherever you are. Don't lose yourself in the situation, but always live in your identity. Right? Find out the things that make you happy, that give you peace, that give you joy, that give you comfort. Find out who you are in the situations and don't let the situations dictate who you are. Right? A lot of times we're not living life. Life is we're just moving through life and letting it happen to us instead of forging our own path and creating our own story. Right? And if you do that, then your identity can be clear, because I'm not just kind of coasting along and then wherever I end up, oh, I'm with this guy today, so I'm this, or I'm in this shop now, so I'm that. No, you create the narrative of your story. But in knowing that, there are going to be times where you get to a fork in the road and you have to make a decision. Do I stay where I am? Or do I move on to the next phase and get the next lesson? And that choice to move on to the next phase and get the lesson is that transitional time that's really, really hard. Because you really have to turn off the old way of thinking. And that's difficult because we live in familiarity. right? So to turn off my old way of thinking and that routine and the things that I know and what I've done most of my life, and now kind of flick on this new switch and do something different, it sounds easy, right? Oh, I'll just do something different. It's extremely hard. I have to now wipe everything that I know clean, unlearn all of those past behaviors and all of those past, things that I used to do. And I have to be willing to do something different. I have to be willing to do it. I have to be committed to do it. I have to be dedicated in doing it. And then I have to do it. Not knowing what's going to come. That unknown. That's what's scary about life, is that we don't know where we're going to end up. We may have an idea, but know that you're forging a path to get to where you want to get to, right? And this is another thing that I've had to discover, and what's been, and a friend of mine, she actually said this to me recently, and it really changed my perspective and really helped me on my transitional journey. And she knows who she is, and I appreciate her so very much. But she said something to me. I was looking for a home to purchase, and that's where I am right now. I'm in the process of trying to buy a home. And making a decision to change everything about my present situation. And I was really stressed about it, right? Stressed about the transition and stressed about, what to do and making the right choice and the right decision. And she said, what if you couldn't fail? What if there was no failure? Failure wasn't an option. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would be the decision that you made? And that really struck a nerve for me. And it made me realize that that's where I lived, in success and failure, in right and wrong. And that is such a stressful place to be, right? Because it's like, I don't want to make the wrong decision. That's what I kept saying. That's what I said to her, and that's what I kept saying to myself. I don't want to make the wrong decision. I don't want to make the wrong decision because I don't want to end up in the wrong place. I kept saying that, right? But what I have to understand, and what I have come to understand in my quiet time, in my meditation time, in my sitting still and listening to the voice of God, and really listening to my body and how it speaks to me in my mind, and just really being still. What I've come to learn is there is no right or wrong. The decision that you make is the best decision for you in that time, in that season, right? So if we don't live in the right and the wrong, and we just allow our hearts and our minds to guide us and make the best decision for us in that time, then the pressure of the right and the wrong dissipates. And you understand that because I was created in the image of God, that I'm always going to bend and yield to what is correct for me in that season, right? So if I make this choice, I'll end up here. But if I make that choice, I'll end up there. But I'll always end up somewhere. And ending up somewhere, it can't be wrong. Right? You're in a new, different position, and that's what you're trying to accomplish, to move from what the Bible says, from move to faith, from faith to faith, from glory to glory. We're moving from phase to phase, from season to season. And in that moving and in that transition, we're learning and we're growing. So how could that be wrong? Right? And I feel like just that knowledge and that wisdom alone has given me such peace and given me such a new perspective. And that's what I needed, a fresh perspective, that I'm not in the place where God is displeased with my decision. I trust myself enough that I have God enough in me that I'm going to make the best decision for me in that moment. And that helped my transition process. It really, really did. And I don't know if it'll help you, but if you're at a phase in your life where you've come to a fork in the road, right? You've come to a place where you have to make a decision if I'm going to continue where I am or if I'm going to move on and do something different. Be it, like I said, a relationship, a career. You may be phasing out of, your children moving from being in the home with you to phasing out into college and you don't know what to do. Put yourself first and make a decision. Make sure that you weigh out the cons and the pros of it all. But whatever decision that you make is the right decision for you in that time. And don't be pigeonholed by right and wrong, right? Don't be so, I don't want to do wrong. I don't do wrong. Move failure out of the way as an option. There is no option to fail. Failure doesn't even exist. It's just getting you to the next phase. And that has been just so super eye-opening for me. And it's helping me. So I hope that it helps you. But yeah, that's where I've been right now in my life. That's where I've been living right now in just really in a transitional phase. And I'm uprooting everything that I know and I'm making a decision for me. After all that I've been through and gone through, I feel like I did make one decision for me to move where I was. I moved from Michigan to the South, and I felt like I needed to do that to really get my mind right and really to get back focused and get my drive and my ambition back and all of the things. And I felt like that was a great decision for me at the time. Right. And I feel like I've learned what I needed to learn in that time, in that season. I've grown and I've evolved and I've healed and I'm still healing and I'm still growing and I'm still evolving. But who I was 7 years ago before all of these things happened to me, I am not that person anymore in any way, shape, or form. I don't look like her. I don't sound like her. I don't think like her. I don't behave like her. I'm completely different. And it's really mind-blowing to me. Like when I look back at who I was before and I'm just like, wow. Not that I was very fearful. Because one of the things that I battled most of my life, and I know I still have my things, but I was very fearful. I was very, like I said, my relationship, looking back, it was such a codependent space, right? I felt like I couldn't do anything without that other person. And, that's not the best place to be in. It's not the worst place either, but just looking back at who I was, like I've always been ambitious and I've always been willing to try new things. But just in that span of time, those 7 years of me, really digging in and learning myself and healing and pulling myself out of despair and all of those things. Like I've done so many things that I never even would have imagined me doing alone. Like picking up and moving to another state. Can you imagine doing that by yourself? Right? Like just little things. Like I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of the things that I've been able to accomplish and allow myself to accomplish. Things that I would have been completely against in the past because of who I was. So I'm so happy with who I'm becoming. I'm so happy that I'm allowing myself to move through the phases of life, even in fear. There's a quote that I always used to say to my daughter, and it was, imagine what you could do without fear. Imagine the things that you could accomplish if you just let fear go. How you can move from phase to phase, from season to season, to place to place, and transition with such ease and with such grace if you just let fear go. And I've really allowed that quote to resonate and to live in my heart and to be my mantra, really. Like, imagine what you could do without fear. Take fear out of the equation and just do it. Take fear out of the equation and just walk through the door. Take fear out of the equation and just make the decision. And right now, I'm adding that new thing on. Take right and wrong out of the equation and just do. Because you're going to end up in a new place, and that's ultimately what you want to do. I want to end up in a new place so I can do a new thing, right? So I can experience new things. So I can. It's all about, the newness of the day. I want to experience everything that I can in this lifetime. I want all the joy, all the peace, all the happiness that my heart and my hand can hold, right? And the only way to get there is to let go of fear, to let go of that right and wrong, and to transition with grace and with ease, and to become your true, authentic self in every phase of life. And that's where I am. That's where I'm living right now in this time, in this season that I'm in. I'm just, it's just so mind blowing, like who I used to be and who I am now. Like I said, I don't even look the same. I go back and look at pictures. I have a lot of, pictures in my phone and, your Snapchat memories. And I look at myself and I'm like, okay, that's me. But I look at myself and I don't even recognize me. Like I look at my eyes and and I'm like, who is that person? I completely look different. Now, of course, I've lost about 50 pounds. So, of course, I look different there. But I look different. I feel different. I think different. My daughter actually showed my grandson, he's 5. Well, he's about to be 5, a picture of me when I was a little bit younger. I don't know. It wasn't a super old picture, but it wasn't a recent picture of me. And she said, who is that? And he was like, I don't know. And she was like, yeah, you do. You know who that is. Who is that? And he was like, I don't know who that is. And I was like, I don't know who that is either. Right? I want to get to the point in life where I look so different because I've done the work that you might have to take a double take. Right? Like, wow, like you are a new person. And not in a bad way. And it doesn't always have to be physical, but even just my aura. I want to exude the light and the love of God in a way that changes people's lives. And it changes mine. But yeah, when he was like, I don't know. And she was like, that's Yaya. And he was like, that's not Yaya. I want to change for the better and grow so much so that I'm unrecognizable because I've done the work. That's what I wanted to share with you guys. And if you're in the transitional phase of your life right now, understand that it's not a bad thing. It's tough, like I said, because you have to turn off what's familiar. In that routine of you can kind of do things with your eyes closed, and now you have to do something different. So it is extremely difficult, but it's purposeful, and it's to get you to that next phase and get you through to that next season of life where now, I've learned what I need to learn. I've grown and I've evolved, and that's what life is. So don't be afraid of the transition. If you're at that place in your life where you're in that decision-making stage, don't let the fear of making the right or wrong choice pigeonhole you. Just breathe. Like I said, write down your pros and your cons and make a conscious decision. But be so secure in your decision that there is no wrong one. And let there be peace and you move on and make that transition that you need to make so that you can move on to the next phase of your life. And if you're in that place right now, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love for you to share where you are in your life and maybe the transitions that you've gone through, over the course of your life, and how you're maneuvered through them in the past. And if you're there now, talk to me. Let's discuss it. Let's hit the comments and let's have a conversation. That's what this show is about. It's not about me rambling on about all of the things that I've done to heal, but it's also for you to, to glean from the information and to get insight and to really help you on your journey of healing as well. So yeah, don't be a stranger. Like I said, we're going to do a little bit of a break, but we're going to come back strong. I thank you so much for listening to the Healing Over Everything podcast. And we do leave every show with an affirmation. And our affirmation is, I make my choices and I'm secure in the choices that I make. And they are for my best and highest good. Thank you for tuning in to the Healing Over Everything podcast. I am your host, T, and we'll talk soon.